For the sake of the
Morning and
today, if you weren't with us last week, this is a little bit of a unique format where we feel like the biggest thing that you're going to get on Thursday is truth. Of course, some training, some tips and stuff like that, but you're going to hear some authentic stories from two top producing realtors at Hometown Realty. You've got a male take on it, a female take on it. You've got somebody that's run a branch of Hometown, run teams, and then somebody that does business a completely different way. Before everybody jumped on, we were even talking about just different styles of organizations that still produce the same result. So I'm excited to have Dwayne Tharp and Shannon Haskins this morning, really to share some knowledge with us and hopefully leave us just a little bit better today than we went in. I don't know if anybody else has a little bit of snow on the ground, but it's a good day for a Zoom training if you got a little bit of snow on the ground, because I know
Absolutely.
how that can make people feel.
Yeah.
So the format today, first we'll have the guests, we'll have them kind of tell their story, right? And their story, it includes where they're from, like even where they went to school, if they're local or something like that. A little bit of information about family. I'm a big family guy in addition to business. What other jobs they've had, how they got into real estate, basics like offices and teams, and then really like, why did they choose Hometown? Like what made Hometown so good? From there, I've got 4 specific questions. Full disclosure, they already know what these questions are, so there's no like surprises or anything. But I tried to find the 4 most authentic questions that cover humor, seriousness, organization, and lifestyle. So, take some notes if you can today. And above all, God gave us 2 ears, 1 mouth. This is a good time to kind of keep those ears open and see what might come your way. We're going to start with Shannon Haskins. Shannon, I've known you for a long time. I feel like when I was not climbing the ladder of real estate like I wanted to, you still remained one of my cheerleaders. And you've always, I don't even know if I've ever told you this, but you've always struck me as a person like you just don't give up on people. I'm sure there's somebody out there that didn't deserve you that you probably gave up on at some point, but like that's just not your style,
Yeah.
So give us your story. Like I want to hear the details I don't know, but I know that there's people out there that just don't know much about you yet.
Sure. So when I was in my 20s, I was in a long-term relationship and I was kind of ending that right as I came into real estate. And I had stuff to do. I had bills that I wanted to pay and things to do. And I was always a corporate person before that. I worked for Anthem Blue Cross and Blue Shield for 4 years. I worked for Capital One for 4 years. Capital One taught me so much. All of the things that were the hard lessons, I feel like Capital One taught me. I was in the recoveries department and I was really good at it because I'm nice and I'm sweet and people would give me money. And I got to the point that I was really successful. But one day I was almost in a car accident on the way to work. And I remember being happy. Oh, I almost didn't have to go to work. And I was like, oh, that's a bad sign. So if anybody else has had a job where they just detested the very day of it, I definitely understand. And it's one of the things that made me strive for change and realize that I just hated being tied to a desk. And then, from there, I got into real estate I got my license April 1st, April Fool's Day. I always think that's funny. And then I started in May, and between June and December, I had 14 closings and
Nice.
I never looked back. And I didn't have a COI. My family wasn't from around here. I had just broken up with like the 8-year relationship that I had been in. And so, how you divide all your friends and everything else. And so it was really nice that, I felt like I had a fresh start. So I empathize with a lot of agents when they say, I don't have a big COI. And I'm always like, doesn't matter. But yes, I never give up. I grew up in the country, but I went to school at Tucker High School in the West End. When I was in school, we drove like 37 miles each day to school from Goochland. So I know a ton about land. I know a ton about farming. And if you've ever had any friends that were farmers, we never have the right tool for whatever it is that we're doing. Never. But we always find a way to make it work. And I feel like that's true in real estate. I never necessarily had the right tax record or the right whatever with me, or knew 100% about the neighborhood, or no, I didn't know that the house around the corner just went under contract yesterday because I prepared for this yesterday morning and didn't look at the numbers this morning. So I never feel like I'm 100% prepared, and that upbringing let it work for me because I'm confident that I can find out and I can make it happen even if I didn't know it going in, if that makes sense. So like a lot of everything I do is the confidence of knowing I'm going to make it fit. I'm going to make this square peg fit in this round hole. Just give me a minute. I got a butter knife. We can work this out somehow. And so that's where my confidence comes from. And I always tell agents, and I think I've told Dwayne this, like, just be confident. I hope it's okay, Dwayne, but I'm going to share a little church thing for you. When Dwayne first started, we had another agent at his church that was here and was doing really well. And Dwayne was like, well, I mean, he's got the church, he's the director, he's the pastor, he's the youth guy, whatever. And I was like, I don't care, just keep being you. And so, that authenticity has, definitely paid off. And a few years later, that other person has left the church, left real estate, left the state of Virginia. And now, Dwayne's going hard, and I'm so excited for him. And I think that, I'm always a cheerleader for everybody. I can count on one hand how many people it would be okay if I didn't hear from them again. But, everybody else, I'm like, how's it going? What you doing? How's it been? And I feel like that's truly who I am at the core of it, if that makes sense.
I agree 100%. And I already learned something about Dwayne. So that's pretty cool.
Sorry, Dwayne, didn't mean to spoil it on you.
Well, it reminds me, I don't know who, it might've been like Dean Cheatham or something, but it's kind of like, hey, we take all of these cracks at the rock and we're 99 cracks into it. And for some reason, we just don't have the courage to make that 100th or 101. And that's where we need to be. If you have a Shannon kind of like, let's say either blowing some wind into your sails or kicking you in the butt, that sometimes can get you to 100 and 101. It's one of my favorite things about hometown, because we do have a couple of wind blowers and butt kickers. So it's the best of all worlds. Yeah. Shannon, what's one thing you try to do every day without fail, to be successful in the business?
So everybody talks about gratitude, but I would say 100% a grateful mentality. So like I said, go back to where I was at hometown. We had to make 185 calls a day. Mike would die if I made 185 calls today. And every day. So like, let's say it's pouring down rain and I'm going to show property. Are you glad you're not tied to a desk? Are you glad you get to maybe leave a few minutes early? You're in a school thing with your child on 2:00 on a Wednesday and your phone is blowing up and you're just hitting it and sending it to voicemail. Are you happy and you have gratitude in your heart that you have that kind of job, that your boss isn't going to say, hey, come out in the hall and take this call right now? Like, you have that ability. You and I have talked like early, there was a Christmas party like 5 years ago or some kind of event where we were all out until the middle of the night, and it was like 6:00 in the morning and I'm going up a hill dragging 4 horses. And I texted you because we all had to be at training at like 8, and you were like, winners find a way and everybody else finds an excuse, because we're gonna do it. We're gonna get it done because the payoff is just so huge. And then it just becomes second nature. Like, I was at the beach with my friend on our annual vacation with our children, and it just kind of got quiet and slow and nothing was going. And all of a sudden I have picked up my phone innately, just, organically, and it started texting clients. Hey, what you doing? I'm at the beach. How's it going? That kind of thing. I didn't even realize it. We were just having chips and snacks and I didn't want to eat the chips. So I picked up my phone and I started playing with it. And that is what I consider to be gratitude. I'm so grateful to have these relationships. And if you wear it every day, like your tiara, to work, to school, to the gym, to Walmart, you can be in Walmart hating the fact that you're in line at Walmart at Christmas time. But hey, I'm not in an office making 185 calls to people who owe money to Capital One. So, hey, it's golden. We're good. I feel like that's the key to it.
I love it. Perspective is everything. One thing I wrote down as you were talking, like, I think sometimes in real estate, and again, being vulnerable, like I am guilty of this. We forget the get to versus have to, right? There's all these things that we get to do in real estate that maybe we take for granted. That phone call ringing at the most inopportune time. Well, 3 hours ago, I was wishing my phone would ring, so maintaining a grateful mentality and showing it with your database, that's strong for sure. What's I don't think that you're the master of hard lessons like I am, Shannon, hopefully not, but what's one lesson that real estate has kind of taught you the hard way?
Don't be desperate. So, negotiate from a place of power and kindness. But I love Dean. Dean has taught me so much in this business. I couldn't do it without him. Dean had told me at one point, don't be desperate because they can sense it and feel it on you. And I totally agree with that. I had a transaction like at the bottom of the recession where every one of them was so precious, right? And we had kind of bent and allowed this buyer to go ahead and move in and start painting a few things. They couldn't stay in the house, but I allowed them to paint with the seller's permission. And I really didn't want to, like, I just didn't have a good feeling about it. And all those agents who are always like, no, you absolutely cannot take possession until you have everything in a row. No, you can't do this. No, you can't do that. I totally understand where they got that from, because this person went in, painted the house a bunch of crazy colors, sanded and punched holes and stuff to put in shelves and whatever. The deal fell apart. The loan never closed. And then I ended up having to pay on a deal that hadn't closed yet to repaint a house. And I don't mean like, thousands of square feet, but I mean like it was money that I didn't have at the bottom of the recession when, the average agent was doing 5 deals a year.
Right.
And so that was a really hard lesson. And so I swore from that point on, like, I will never let anybody know how much I need this to close. And I will never, put the cart before the horse when it comes to that. So I'll never do it. So
I love it. I don't think in the trenches we're as grateful for hard lessons as we are when we enter the reflection phase,
Yeah.
But a lot of times, at least for me personally, when I reflect on the mistakes that I've made, it comes with a resolution to not make them again. But it's almost like you needed that pain, or you needed to write the check to that painter for it to be as impactful as possible. Take notes from Shannon. Don't let your clients or anybody paint houses before closing.
Yeah.
What's so flipping the script here, not so hard and tough and stuff, but what's like the funniest or craziest thing that's ever happened to you in real estate?
So this past summer, I had a really good customer who doesn't live far from my home and the office call me and say, hey, I'm so sorry, but we're in Myrtle Beach. Is there any way you could do a welfare check on my mother-in-law? She's here from Poland. She's like 75 or 80. She doesn't speak English. And we've been calling her. Can you go check on her? And I was like, sure, absolutely. I go to the house. I ring the doorbell. From Myrtle Beach, he answers the ring and he's like, hey, she's not going to answer the door. We told her not to answer the door. Can you go around to the garage and I'll give you the code and you open it and go in the house? Okay. So I do. And I go in and the door is unlocked and I open the door to the kitchen. You can hear the dogs barking and everything, and they're little yapper dogs. And she's in the edge of the kitchen going towards the foyer and sees me and yells at me in Polish and shakes her finger and takes off running. And I'm like, wait, Peter called me. He asked me to come. And at this point, I'm trying to dial the phone and she's like yelling. In my head, I'm thinking, does she have a gun? Does she have a knife? What's getting ready to happen? And so I get Peter on the phone. I'm like, Peter, and I have his name like programmed on my phone. I'm like, Peter, and I put him on speakerphone and he starts talking to her in Polish and she's yelling. She's mad. She's yelling at me and pointing her finger. She's got the phone in her hand. She's yelling at him. And I'm like, oh my Lord. Yeah, she's fine. She's feisty and fine. And I was like, okay. Your phone is off. And he yells at her that the phone is off. And she grabs the phone and hangs up. And I was like, I think I'm leaving. I'm going to leave now. I was like, okay, bye-bye. And I leave. I get in the car. I call him and he's like, oh my gosh, she's so mad at me, but I'm so grateful. She didn't realize her phone was on silent. Everything's fine. But literally, after the fact, I realized I'm like, she could have shot me because I walked into her kitchen from the garage.
No doubt. No doubt.
And so, but like, it was the funniest thing. And then she came to 2 client events, the fall pumpkin event. And again, she still doesn't speak in English. And she's like, oh, no, and like hugs me. And the funniest thing is she looks just like Sophia from Golden Girls. So is Sophia going to shoot you? I don't think so, but you don't know.
She might. She might. She
Yeah.
looks like she could. Of all the Golden Girls, like she's the one that's got a fighting chance.
So yeah, I've seen her 2 more times since then, and she always hugs me. I still don't know what she's saying about me, but that's okay.
But I think it sounds like she's saying something different than she was saying before. So that's
Yeah,
like a good thing.
she's not pointing her finger and yelling at me, so I'll take it.
It's weird too, Shannon. As you were telling that story, one thing that jumps out at me is similar to the hard lesson, right? Like the bond that you forged with that lady was forged in the most not weird of ways, but kind of intense. Like you thought maybe you would get shot or something like that, but now you're a recognizable figure to her, and you made a gesture that she probably thinks about a different way. That's pretty sweet.
Yeah.
All right. So, and this is more maybe a rapid fire question. Sure. How many hours do you think a full-time agent should put in? I struggle with the whole part-time agent thing, but let's just say full-time agent on a weekly basis. And what are the 3 best things you think an agent could do with those hours?
So I thought a lot about this. When I was a senior in high school, I worked 11 to 11 at Arby's on Saturday and Sunday to get 24 hours in because I was paying for my own car, my own way, and I had moved out. And so when I think about the hours, I think I could do that in 2 days as a student and a part-time person. So 36 hours, I think, is the minimum, right? And there was a point at which that I was writing it on my calendar right behind my desk every day, how many hours I worked, how many hours I was at the office or showing property, because you know how we're all busy. Oh gosh, I'm so busy. I'm so tired. I'm busy. And when you actually sit down and calculate it, you're not actually working that much. You had a coffee thing that didn't start until 10. You came to the office for a few hours. You had to show property and you got home by 4:30. That's only 6 hours. You didn't actually do what you were intended to do. That's not full time right there. And so I actually tracked it for a while to say, am I really being so busy and working 40 plus hours a week, and realized that I was kind of shorting myself a little bit. So if you aren't, 36 if you're efficient. If you aren't doing all of that, and I wrote it down because I wanted to have my notes with me, but fill in the extra time. If you don't know what to do with your extra time that you have to be there for more hours, look at properties on the MLS, do pop buys, pull specific neighborhoods that you want to be an expert on, build relationships with contractors. When's the last time you talked to your tree guy or your grass guy or your neighbor's grass guy? Build a relationship with them. Shadow other top producers. What are they doing in the office? I'm sure that they're doing something on social media or some other small tweak behind the things that you're not thinking about. And once you've established business, I'll give you the other side of it. 19 years later, you have to be careful not to burn out. So my goal now is to work under 50 hours and over 40. So when I do that, when I'm in that sweet spot of at least 40 and under 50, everything spins and all the little plates keep going. If I get over 50, I get frazzled and my family pays that price. If I work under 40, then my support staff or my people or my business pay the price. When you work less than 36 hours, whether you're a dual career or, part-time or whatever, your business is paying the price. So unless you're ready to write that check for it, when you're not making income, change your work schedule.
Agree 100%. That's strong, Shannon. So I wrote 36 hours minimum. If you don't know how you're spending your time, track your time. I talk about atomic habits again. There's a habit audit checklist. You write everything you do in a day. You put a plus for the good stuff. You put a minus for the stuff in your heart is bad. And then you leave an equal for the stuff that maybe is just necessary but not productive, right? And I, for a long time, thought that a lot of us should really do a daily audit versus the comments we make about how busy we are, you know? The other thing I wrote is there's a difference between motion and action. And you try to spend your time in action, not just, I got some stuff done today. I don't really know what it looks like, and I can't measure the productivity of it. Like you're firing sniper rounds, which is, I think, way stronger approach to it.
Yeah.
So as we wrap up with Shannon here and move on to Dwayne, I wrote a few things that she said. When in doubt, when you have nothing to do and you want to work, you should fill those hours, right? Look in MLS, do research. Target a neighborhood, learn about that neighborhood, become a neighborhood specialist, pop by your database, work on your B2B relationships. Who do you not know? Who haven't you talked to in a while? And then shadowing other agents. I've always loved that one. Pick another agent, they'll be flattered by it. The chances are they'll love a little company, and I know when I've got a agent partnering with me, I don't know how to describe it, but it makes me work harder. It makes me stay sharper. It makes me kind of want to say, hey, if they're going to learn something from me today, I don't want it to be the wrong thing, you know?
Well, you want to be an A+ teacher at that point. You don't want to be a B- example. And
right.
We just naturally step our game up when someone's watching.
Heck yeah. Yeah. Well, at least the competitors do, right? Plus, like, I'm terrified that somebody's going to be like, hey, man, where'd you learn that? And they're like, Larry Sanders from the Twin Hickory office. His office is right there in the front. You can find him. Too scared of that. All right, Dwayne. So this is a little easier for you because we kind of like took the training wheels off. But I'm stoked to hear about you again because I don't know much about you. But where you're from, where you went to school, a little info on your family, any other jobs you've had, why you got into real estate, all that good stuff, brother.
Well, so I actually grew up in Hopewell, Virginia, and went to school there. I'm an 82 graduate from Hopewell High School. I joined the military immediately after high school and went in the Air Force. I wanted to see the world. I was 18, and the world was just at my picking at that point. They sent me to Texas, Mississippi, and Langley Air Force Base. So I got out of the military after 6 years and went to work for ICI Films. I started there as a production worker. I actually started as a janitor and worked my way up into management. You know, when I left there, I was actually the senior sales executive for the Midwest Territory. So I covered Wisconsin to Texas from Virginia. I left there, went over to IT and started selling IT locally. Became the vice president of sales for a small IT company over in Midlothian. Stayed there about 14 years and decided that I wanted to go back out in the field. But one thing, when I left ICI and DuPont, they sent me to school to be a realtor. And that was back in 2000, and I want to say it was 2000 and 2002, 2003. And I couldn't pass the state exam. I kept failing it. I failed it 3 times. After that, I got angry. I said, well, I don't need it. I'll just buy houses and rent them. So that's what I started doing. I realized after about 5 years, I did not want to be a landlord. And so I sold them all. And in the meanwhile, I was working as an IT sales guy, became the vice president of sales, worked there for around 14 years and decided back in 2015 to leave there and branch out into other areas of IT. In the meanwhile, I've always been an entrepreneur. I started in sales when I was 15 out at a clothing store in Hopewell. I sold men's clothes and got to know a lot of the business people around Hopewell. So I knew a lot of people and they knew me. So it was an easy thing for me to think about to go into real estate because I had a big circle of influence of people that I knew. I came on as a dual career agent. So I worked 2 full-time jobs because in my opinion, you can't do real estate part-time. It has to be full-time and you got to put the hours in and the time in. And so I've been doing that now. It's funny because I was recruited by Lance Taylor, and Lance used to work for me over at the IT company where I was the VP of sales.
So Lance is one of my husband's best friends. So
yeah, it didn't work out for us over there. He left, and years later, he recruited me. So it's a small circle we live in this world. God blesses us for reasons. I've always believed that people coming in your life for a reason.
Yeah.
And so he immediately introduced me to Shannon, which I am very blessed to know and be part of her agents that she's worked with and helped and supported. The first thing that I did when I came into Hometown was to join a team. I didn't like that team, so I started searching for another team to work on. And I graciously got picked up by Ashley Oakley. And so I've known Ashley's family for 30 years, and she's a real go-getter and very gracious to help me with real estate and teach me all that she knows. So that's where I'm at today.
I love it, man. Well, Dwayne, I know the Four Hands well too, and I'm from Petersburg, so the Tri-Cities effect. I think people may say different things about Hopewell, Petersburg, Colonial Heights, or whatever it is, but there's a lot of traditional loyalty down there. So hearing you say, "Hey, I had these connections from years and years and years,"
yeah,
it's true that. I guess a person of good character can walk right back into those relationships as a realtor, and it's like riding a bike.
sure.
It's cool to hear your story, like where you're from, and like just like what your trip to get here has looked like. What's one thing you try to do every day, Dwayne, that you feel like makes you successful as a realtor?
I try to contact all the contacts that I'm working with. I generally have a bucket of 10 to 15 people that I'm working with on things. And then I'm constantly daily looking for homes that fit their needs, because, with the market having a slowdown in building and less houses being put on the market, it's hard. So I try to get in front of that for the client, and find that house that's getting ready to go on the market, or someone I know that has the home that'll fit their needs, and see if they're interested in selling it.
Sure. I love that. And I'm glad to hear you say that about the current market. I have all these dumb little sayings. Most of them are probably wrong, but one of the things I say about the market we're in right now is agents need to have a lot of butt in the seat time.
Yeah.
Butts in the seat, research, phone calls, serving your clients, maybe not out doing the glamorous stuff that won't produce the results we need right now. Doing that research and trying to find out, like you said, Dwayne, maybe what's coming for my buyer, so I can call them and try to make them happy instead of calling them and telling them I don't have anything for them. That's good stuff, man. What's a lesson that real estate's taught you, but maybe taught you the hard way, Dwayne?
Well, I had a deal last fall where I had a client that was out of state, and they came and they looked at this one house with me, and it was the ideal house. They wanted it, had to have it. They overbid it, won the contract. And as soon as the home inspection was done, they turned tipsy-turvy, but they were very wish-washy, back and forth. They didn't know if they wanted to keep the deal or didn't know if they wanted to let go of the deal. And so they started asking for things on an as-is contract. And the nice guy I am, I went out and tried to negotiate some of those things with the seller's agent and the seller, which they finally came back and said they would do. But then even at the end of that, they were still very irate, almost to the point where it was threatening. And I don't give up on people. So I kept trying to go back and say, hey, look, it's not a new house. And I think sometimes you just have to, when it gets to a point, you got to learn the lesson of just saying, okay, if you want out of it, I'll submit the paperwork and get you out of it, if they'll let you out. And I actually got to that point right at the end of the deal, but they stretched it out. The bad part about it, I told Ashley this: I'll never sell another house in the neighborhood I live in.
Right?
Because
every time these people go home or leave their home, they ride right by my house.
Yeah.
So.
And in situations like that, there could be 99 good things and one point of conflict, and the point of conflict seems to be what gets remembered, unfortunately.
Yeah. But they're still very kind and nice to me, and we talk on a regular basis. So
good. It sounds like it could have been a lot worse. It's hard too. We're in an emotional business, and I think I like your philosophy of not giving up on people. I do think as we get more and more experienced as realtors, we sometimes can feel bad educating them about the legalities of things. You know, I'm not going to lie, I certainly do, but I've learned over the years that the penalties that come along with not having those conversations are so much more severe than if you, you know, do everything you can to help a client. I think that's the first question is, hey, did I do everything I could to help with this? But sometimes the chips do fall how they might. So it's good to hear that they don't throw toilet paper at your house or anything like that, Dwayne.
No, they haven't egged it or anything. They haven't egged it or anything, so I've been lucky.
Golden. All right, so let's flip the script here. What's you know, funniest, craziest, however you want to word it, but what's something on the flip side that's happened to you in real estate that comes to mind?
Well, just the fact that, you know, real estate last year this time was just rolling, and I was in the midst of it all, and trying to keep it all organized and keep everybody happy and keep my other job happy. And so it's just running on all cylinders is just something that I think is hilarious, because I've got 4 kids and they range from ages of 37 to 9. And so I'm kind of dating myself a little bit. So real estate's really given me a second leg on life. It's got me back feeling like I'm in my 20s again, just running wide open all the time. So
let's go. I like your style, Dwayne.
So
I like your style, man. 4 kids, ages 9 to 37, 2 full-time jobs, and just straight kicking butt. I love it, man. All right, so we get a little bit serious here, and I think this is what this is one of those questions that we ask and we hope the answer is as soft as we can get, but most of the answers I get from experienced agents, it's the exact opposite. So how many hours do you think that a full-time agent or somebody in your shoes should put in, right? And on a weekly basis. And then what do you think the 3 best things an agent could be doing with those hours?
Sure. So I think you have to work real estate as a full-time job. You have to find ways to make yourself available to clients when they're available. You got to put the hours in. I put 36 to 50 hours in a week. I work 7 days a week. I show houses 7 days a week. I take my lunch break and show houses. I show houses in the evening. I do virtual tours. Whatever I have to do to help the client get into a home. I think this is a servant business, so we are serving the public, and that's really a great thing for me, because that's something I like giving back to the community. And so this is something that's been really just touches my heart when someone thanks me for helping them find a home, you know. And so you can't do that if you don't put the time in and you don't do the research and the phone calls. And I've been very lucky to have Shannon and Ashley as mentors. And you know, Shannon keeps me on track. When she knows I'm off track, I get a little message from her going, "Hey, what about this?" And so I appreciate those things to keep me safe. And so yeah, 36 to 40 hours at least. And you can get burnout. I got a little burnout at the end of the year and I had to take some time off. And so I went on a cruise for 4 days and just no phone, no laptop. Ashley covered me while I was gone, and life was good when I got back. So, you know, you just need those times. And so I think the best thing agents can do is make their phone calls, write notes, and talk to at least 5 people a day about being a real estate agent. You know, you let 5 people at least a day know that. It's helped me because some people don't, you know, they know me as the IT guy. Even in my church, Shannon brought that up. My church knew me as the IT guy. And if you go to Destination Church in Hopewell, you know, I'm the one that sold them the big mega monitor that they have on the stage, and the digital monitors around the halls and stuff, you know, and that's what they all knew me by. And when I told them I was going into sales or real estate sales, they were like, "What? You're the IT guy." So, you know, it's hard to brand yourself when someone, you know, you've done it so long, people know you for that. But it's starting to shift. And my goal is to move into real estate full time by the end of this year and not have the other job. So that's something I'm working towards. Ashley's helping me work towards that, and so is Shannon. She's giving me advice on how to get there, and I've followed their advice. You got to be willing to follow the advice of your mentors.
Yeah.
You know, they can speak into your life, but they can't do it if you don't let them. So.
Yeah, oh man, that's powerful there, Dwayne. I think sometimes I see Dwayne and he cooked a dish. Let's say Dwayne baked a cake and I had a slice of Dwayne's cake and I'm like, man, Dwayne bakes a mean cake. It's delicious. Dwayne, give me a recipe, man. And you're like, hey, look, I'm going to give you my recipe, but it's going to be a little hot in the kitchen. You got to be really careful with your ingredients and you got to listen to what I tell you. I'm not taking anything away from you or your skills, but if you don't follow this recipe, your cake will not taste like mine. And I think a lot of times we have so many agents that put 80, 85% of those ingredients in, or maybe 100, but they take the cake out like 10 minutes too early, or they don't put one extra egg in and it's not the same result, so they stay confused. That's so powerful to hear you say, hey, one of the best things you can do with your time first is to find a mentor, and second is to follow the advice of the mentor. That's strong. And Hometown is in no shortage of quality mentors, but you have to ask, right? Closed mouths just don't seem to get fed. Dwayne, I wrote calls and notes, research, talk to 5 people a day about real estate. I love that, right? Like either work with your database or meet new people that could be in your database in the future. But action, right? And what I took from you today is you make it a lifestyle. You're not trying to get away from real estate. You're not trying to carve a perfect sculpture. You're like, hey, if it's a 7-day-a-week job this week, it's a 7-day-a-week job. If I can get a little down, I'm going to plan a 4-day cruise, throw my phone in the water and sip some drinks, you know?
Right.
I think that's the privilege that real estate gives us if we're doing the right stuff. And sometimes maybe if we feel trapped, we really have to look at what we've been doing for the last 6 or 8 months and be honest with ourselves if we trapped ourselves or if it was, you know, an external influence. I think usually it's the first. But this was amazing. And we can go Shannon first, Dwayne second. Do y'all have any other words or just general advice to give them before we bust out of here? We'll keep it right at 45 minutes today.
So I think there's one other thing that was really important to me early on in my career. I was like, you know, Dean, it's Christmas time. This house has a problem. You know, it's not going to close. I've got termites. What do I do? And he's like, yeah. And I was like, what, tell me. And I'm thinking he's getting ready to impart some beautiful wisdom to me about his termite inspector and how he would fix it. And he looks at me and he goes, you know what would make this better? And I was like, no, what? Tell me. A fat stack of pendings. And then he literally did this and went back to work. And I've never forgotten that. So anytime I'm dealing with a customer who's just sucking the life out of me, you know how you have like Buffini says, you'll have 4 great clients and you'll have one that's just a turkey. And anytime I'm in that situation, or I have one of my agents come to me and say, you know, gosh, this person's just, you know, running me ragged and they're not appreciative. I always look at them and I'm like, yeah, you know what would fix that? A fat stack of pendings. Because if you're prospecting more and you have more deals in the hopper, this one deal imploding is not going to affect how dinner goes tonight. If you only have one deal, then dinner tonight might be vodka. I'm not sure. And so I just want to know that you've got more than just one deal. And so I remember at one point, my goal was to have a deal every month. And then my goal was to have 2 deals every month. And I feel like stability is when you get to 3 deals every month. If one of them blows, then oh well. And you know, I have a favorite person that's actually on this call, but I went to sit down with Tommy Sabiga, and this goes to what you said about the cake. And Tommy Sabiga was going to show me everything about, you know, how he funnels all of his leads and, you know, follow-up boss and everything else. And do you know what I left from that meeting thinking? I can't do that. I can't do any of that he's talking about. He is way more IT and smarter than me in that, you know, in that sphere. And that's why he can sit down and tell everybody, because none of us can bake a cake like Tommy. And that's okay. I picked up some little golden nuggets from it that I was able to put back in my business, but I can't do it like him. And I might not be able to do it like Dwayne. He has a huge background. But then if you come to my farm, nobody can have like a fall festival client event and drive by ponies and pies like me. And that's okay. Like, you have to become who you are authentically down deep, right?
Right.
I lived in Glen Allen for 20 years before I moved to Chesterfield. I was always in Glen Allen. That's where my home was. And the lady who got me into real estate, Mary Bostafka, she said, listen, from now on, when you go to Walmart and you're gardening on a Saturday, you put your jewelry on and you put on makeup. I was like, oh, yes, ma'am. Okay. Didn't have the first clue what that meant, but it was, be prepared. You will always see someone when you look the worst, when you're sick at CVS standing in line, you will always see somebody like, oh gosh, I haven't seen you forever. You're like, oh, why? I look like hell. So like, just always remember, it's kind of like putting on armor. So I have this thing about lapels on jackets. Okay. Whenever I have on a jacket and a lapel, I feel like I'm dressed for business. Doesn't matter if, like Dean, I have on, jeans and boots because I'm walking property, whatever, I'm dressed for business. And whenever you're with your clients, they're off. You're at work, they're off. Be dressed, be ready, have your hair done, have a good shave, have a good haircut, be ready. It's just part of the price of doing business, right? And I feel like that preparation every night, the next morning's things, I'm going to go ahead and pull on MapQuest and see how many minutes it is. I'm never going to be late. I hate being late. I hate other people being late. So I feel like that kind of preparation, I didn't come into real estate being that person. I learned that by putting it into my GPS and realizing I'm going to show up 4 minutes late and then trying to beat the GPS. Does anybody else do that? Try to beat the GPS.
Heck yeah.
And then you show up and you're like, your hair's on fire and you're a hot mess and you're running out of the car to try to get to the door because you've got a second house to show that's only 15 minutes later than that first one, all because you didn't put it in the Waze app or the GPS the night before, right?
Right.
Preparation solves all.
Yeah.
Well,
It
and
makes you look so prepared.
well, like dress sharp, take care of yourself. You are going to feel better than the alternative, right? And I love the I guess to make it brief, like that in life, you're only as good as your options, right? And complaining about your options is not going to change them. But effort with the right intention, a lot of times can give you more choice. And you get to the point where Shannon is now. Choices are maybe a lot more abundant than they were once upon a time, because you kept that philosophy. How about you, Dwayne? What you think, man? Any parting words for us, brother?
Yeah, I mean, I think real estate can provide a great lifestyle for people. I think it allows you to have a lot of freedom that you don't have if you work in corporate America. And I'm fortunate that corporate America has kind of allowed me to work from home so I can manage my own time. But I think the hard work has to be done, especially when you're first getting started, because you don't have a Rolodex. And so that, people just standing in line waiting for you to sell them a house. And so you have to get out there and market yourself and brand yourself and give them some reasons why to work with you versus other agents. Not that you want to steal anybody's client, but you want to make sure that everyone that you know and everyone you come in contact with know, you're a real estate agent. You're here to help them, and you can do it better than the guy next door. And I've put that on my list every day to be better than I was yesterday. And I'm chasing a target of the number one guy in the company. For me, he's got a target on his back, and I'm chasing him. So that's where I'm an overachiever. So I do that. I find that the one that's number one in the company, and I chase them. And sooner or later, I either match them or I beat them. And so, that's just how I am. I'm a workaholic too, so that doesn't help any. So,
well,
I'm definitely like that. I love to track my numbers, and I feel like everybody I talk to, if they aren't tracking their numbers, then they don't really know what they're doing or winning. You can't, it's like a scale. Like, yeah, you can do it based off of what your clothes fit like, but you don't really know how much you lost or whatever. You don't really know how many calories you're intaking. Like Larry, I've admired you for so long because I remember when you were doing clean eating and all the weightlifting. I remember thinking, like, I just had a baby 2 years ago and Larry can lift like 1 billion pounds. Why is this happening? And it's all like, get in the game. If that's what you want to do, then do it, but track it. You know,
Yeah.
you don't go into the gym and say, just put some numbers on there and I'll see if I can lift it. Right? Every
No.
day was 5 or 10 pounds more. Can I do just a little bit more than I did yesterday? If you aren't tracking it, you're not going to get there.
Yeah,
And you know, another thing, vision boards are amazing. If real estate agents,
I don't know if y'all can see mine right there.
yeah, they're amazing.
Sticky notes, it has pictures, it has little things on it. And it's right where I make calls, because if you can't emotionally attach to something right there, you're not going to make the 5 extra calls that you need to make to be different than you were yesterday.
That's right. Prime your environment, y'all. Prime your environment. If you're not comfortable where you make calls, what would make it more attractive, right? The best way to create a new habit is to make it sexy. So, you know, take a look at your office today. I'm a believer of what both Dwayne and Shannon have said today. Like, your environment matters, your habits matter. But we work in a business where the sky is truly the limit. We come from all different walks of life. Some of us had absolutely nothing. Some of us moved to areas with no contacts, and everyone was still able to find success. So none of you all are any different than us. And please don't feel like you are. If you don't have a mentor, I think that's something good today that jumped out. Think about Dwayne, right? Maybe the first team you jump on or the mentor that you pick isn't the one for you. We're human. That's okay. But don't give up there, right? Because somebody that has been where you want to go gives you an easy target to put on their back, and you can start firing sniper rounds like Dwayne does. Above all, I know that both of you are productive agents, and I know that scheduling in an hour is tough, especially in the morning when it's, you know, productive time. But I'm grateful to both of you, and I know that everybody here today is grateful too. We got this recorded, so as long as it's okay with y'all, we're going to get that out to the other agents that couldn't be here. I love both of you. If y'all ever need anything from me, let me know, and let's just keep smashing it.
Thank you, guys.
Absolutely. Y'all have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank
care.
you.
Absolutely.
Bye.
See y'all. Thanks, Logan. Appreciate you, man.